There we go. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. So I guess now I'll say I actually have COVID, but I'll just let everybody else know. I could see it in my my nose. I tried to cover up with some makeup, but I'm all congested. This is the second time that we had it in my house, and it's not fun. Not what a little worse than I remembered,
Is
but
it?
I'm going on maybe like day 3 now of symptoms. So
Oh, I'm glad
yeah,
you're doing okay with that.
yeah,
'Cause
nothing
yeah,
serious, but
yeah,
still very uncomfortable at night and just like body aches. So,
yeah. Oh,
but anyway,
yeah. So, mama drama.
mom drama, yeah.
Yeah.
So, basically today we'll be talking about what it's like to be a mom and have cancer. So I think what we'll do is we'll each share our own stories, Alicia and I, and then we'd love to hear from some of you. So, I guess I could get started on mine. I have some notes here so I don't forget the different parts I'd like to speak about. So happy to have so many people joining us. Is great.
Yeah.
So, if you've been following me, or if some of you might have heard before that I was diagnosed with lymphoma when my daughter was 2 months old. So for me, for when you think of the topic of cancer and being a mom, it's kind of unique because I didn't know what motherhood was without cancer. I started being a mom and got cancer at the same time, even though I didn't know for the first 2 months that it was actually cancer. So I just carry with me this feeling of like I missed out on a lot from being a mom. And it's still to today. I'll explain a little bit of how it still affects me today. But, the first 2 months, I guess you could say were pretty normal, where I was taking care of her, my husband and I taking care of her. But I was progressively feeling sicker and sicker. And I remember my mom saying, I could sleep over and help out. And I didn't want to give into that. I thought, like, I could do this. I think I've also mentioned before that I'm very, like, I like to be in control of things. And I didn't want to give that up. And I thought, like, I'm strong. I could do this, until it got to the point where I was so sick. There was nothing I could do. I needed help. But I also was thinking, like, how am I ever going? I'm sure moms go through this. Like, before I knew I had cancer, I was like, how am I ever going to leave this baby with someone else if I have to go somewhere? Like, I'm never going to trust anybody. I don't want to leave her. And little did I know, like, in 2 months, I was gone for 5 days at a time. It was just so terrible to go from like those kinds of thoughts to just it's, sucked away. And like, that's it. You're in a hospital now away from her totally.
Yeah.
Very, very extreme to go to that.
Yeah.
So then I guess I could say, like, so basically we needed help. My husband would stay with me in the hospital. We tried different things, but in the end, that's what worked the best. And my mom and my sister moved in for the days that that I was in the hospital, and took care of the baby. And when I was home, I kind of felt like I was my baby sister because my mom was taking care of both of us. Um, we're very close. Our family is so close. Like, I'm sure she would have been over anyway, but not in the way of like she'd sleep there and cook all our meals, because they advised not to get takeout because my immune system was so messed up that, food poisoning risk could be really bad. So it's better to cook your own meals and all that. But I still feel like our relationship, my daughter and I, is different than it would have been if I didn't have cancer. I think that I'm lenient with her. I think, like I said, sometimes I feel like, am I your sister or your mom? I mean, and
Yeah.
I think, like, if some people see us together sometimes, maybe they would pick up on, like, wow, like, she's like a fun mom or whatever. But I let her get away with a little bit more. And it's just this different take on life that I have now, which I'm sure people could relate to. After all this, I'm like, I don't know. I don't take things as seriously, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
I definitely, I definitely can relate to that. Yeah, of not. Well, you start to know what's important, like to you,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I think we got closer, maybe, in a way, in a different type of way that, like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I should be a little stricter, like I said, or I don't know. But
no,
we're super close.
that makes a lot of sense because I feel like I did too. Like I became less strict, and it was more about living, and learning, in the moment,
Yeah.
yeah, and just
Like
taking it a day at a time.
any routine I may have had, it was like out the window.
Yeah,
Any normalcy. And like, so then that went on for a while, and a family member set up a GoFundMe, and I will say that that was super helpful. So a lot of the medical bills, at least large portions of them, were paid by insurance. I was a teacher at the time in New York City public schools, and a lot of it was covered, which is great. But a lot of times it was also kind of like it was going to be covered, but there was like you'd be charged. You would have to sometimes put up money up front, and then I learned like kind of don't do that. You could fill out a form, and but there was like definitely things with the money. But in the end, I used a lot of that GoFundMe money just to stay home longer. And that was just so awesome. And I still thank everybody to this day who contributed because, yeah, I had medical bills, but I was able to stay longer out of work with her.
yeah,
Um, and so then like when it got to the time where I was back to like, okay, I'm better now, I'm gonna take care of her. That's when I started to feel my anxiety because I'd be there alone. My family would still come over and help, and my husband would be at work, but whatever. When he came home, like we'd all be together. But on those moments and on those days where it was just the two of us, it's kind of weird that I was just thrown into like, okay, well, here's this toddler now, that's just she's your responsibility. And I started getting like these anxious feelings. I'm sure I wasn't feeling like myself still at that point. And yeah, that's when it kind of was the hardest for me, I would say, because I was just like, wow, like I need to take care of her, and I don't even know how to do this on my own. I couldn't even pick her up when I had my pick line. I couldn't lift anything more than 10 pounds. So
yeah,
it was a huge adjustment for me.
yeah,
Then I went back to work a year after treatment ended, and that was because there was like this great job opening that opened right near my house. I'm like, you know what? After everything I went through, it'd be great to live close, to work close to home. But after a year, I was like, again, I missed out on so much. Like, I don't know how I feel about being away from her all day. My mom's taking care of her. I'm going to look back. I'm going to regret this. So I decided to take off more time. I took off 2 more years because until she's 4, you could go back and forth.
yeah.
I went back again, and then COVID happened. After all that, I was like, life is short. I mean, how many wake up calls do you need? But that's when I decided I'm gonna just leave teaching, which was like something I loved, but it was also a lot of stress. The good moments, of course, like I feel like I touched lots of lives, and I'm still in touch with so many former students. Because I taught at a high school first, and I loved every moment. I did a lot of extracurricular activities, but I'm like, I want to be with my daughter. I want to be the one to take her to school in the morning and pick her up. So I left teaching, and now I work from home remotely doing marketing, which I also love. So like, I knew I could do something else. It was just a huge transition, but it's so funny because like even on job interviews, it would come, like, well, why'd you leave teaching? And it's so hard to just say like, oh, it wasn't for me when cancer was like such a big part of that.
Yeah.
My life path would have been totally different if it didn't happen. So it's still, affecting my life and my relationship with my child, and like my choices, I should say, with her. A couple more things, and then I'd love to hear your story. And thanks. I'm looking at the chat quick here, and thank you for everybody who's here. We'd love to hear from some of you. If you could stick around, we'd like to hear some of your stories. Think about it if you'd like to join in.
It
So
does
one thing is about
change your whole life.
it
Yeah,
does. It's and then like sometimes I'm never going to say it was good that I had it, but some of the ways that it changed, I'm happy with the outcome. Like my new path, I'm happy. Like it's something I never would have chosen originally, but it's like, well, it led me here, and it's pretty cool.
it's way cool. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Another huge thing was like having another child. So as far as I know, I am able to, but
yeah.
it's something it was this time, I think I mentioned on one of the other lives, where I was in Home Depot, we were picking up paint. I remember we were talking, I specifically was saying, oh, I wonder when we would be ready to have another child. I didn't even have my baby yet. I was pregnant. And I'm planning in my head, okay, so she would be this old. But then after it all, I didn't feel up to it. And there was a time frame for the first 3 years. They said, there's a risk of the reoccurrence more now than after your third. I think it was three. Originally, we were thinking 5, and the oncologist said, like, with the research, after 3, we're not even going to scan you. So after the 3, I would say still, like, physically and mentally, I was like not really sure. Do I want her to have a sibling? Of course. But then COVID happened, and that kind of, like, right when I was like, maybe this will be the time, it kind of went out the window. And as you get older, for women, it's sad, but it's like less and less an option, I would say.
Yeah.
But I just think to myself, it was different the first time. I got pregnant, I got cancer. I never thought that would happen. The doctors say, like the chance of that happening is the same for anybody now for you. But how do I know for sure that it might not happen again? And now I have a kid, like, now I have a daughter. So
Yeah.
that would be a totally different experience. And it was a risk that I wasn't willing to take. Imagine, like, who knows what happened in the future, but no. But I mean, that was like another huge thing where I thought, like, well, imagine if I got lymphoma again, how that would be. It's a huge risk. Then the last little thing I wanted to mention was, like, so my daughter was a baby, like I said, so she didn't have to see, she saw me with no hair, but didn't think anything of it, obviously, as a newborn. But I'm glad she didn't have to go through those hard moments in real time. Like, she knows, we look back at pictures, and I don't hide it from her. She's my biggest supporter. She comes to light the night. She was on the stage and counted down the walk. She's very into it. And I'm happy that it's not something scary for her. It's something that she's known. And yeah, I mean, every time I go to an appointment, she's like, no, I don't want you to leave, and things like that. But I think in the end, like, she's smart. She knows about how random it was, and that I'm okay now. And yeah, I just I think that it's important to talk to your kids about it, but you'll probably know a little bit more about how to talk to them when you're going through it, right? So, like, I think you're going to have more to share, since my daughter was only an infant. So
Yours is really important too, though, because being so, you had those initial moments that you didn't want to miss out on, and we don't have a choice in those moments, that we can't not miss out on certain things. And that's hard, that's always hard. And that's part of, like, anybody who's a parent that goes through cancer will probably spend some time in the hospital or away getting treatment, and their kid not be able to be with them, their children. And
you
it's
make me think.
hard, because then I know, as a parent, like, I look at my kids and it's like, that's the reason I do all what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything I do is for my children. And yeah, that's it, it, that's hard. That must have been hard for you.
Yeah.
Like, how is your mental health through all of that? Like,
So, like I said, going through the thick of it, okay, I was very positive. I just wanted to get through it. I wanted to get better. But then once it was over, that's when it all hit me. Like, I was like, oh, we can finally go shopping. And then I'd be there and start having a panic attack. I think I was like,
yeah,
wow, this is, I can't believe, I have this kid now, and I'm in the middle of Target, and I'm just doing something normal, but it feels so abnormal to me, because, like, I wasn't trusting, am I really okay? All those kinds of thoughts. But you said something that made me think, I'm holding this pencil, about, like, having to be away from them and other complications. So 2 things. One, I did the cord blood. I don't know if that was new at the time, 2014. Not really, but I think my friends had started talking about that as an option to save the cord blood. And I think it was mostly at the time beneficial for possible siblings. If they ever had something wrong, then you could use that cord blood possibly down the line, depending on what happened with science. But right after, they were like, you got to discard that. I think I even filled something out where they might have studied it, but they're like, you can't use it because you had lymphoma, and we don't know about that. And then they said, if you're breastfeeding, stop. I wasn't actually at the time, so but they said you shouldn't be. I don't know all the details of that, but that would have been like another thing that I would have to stop. And the PET scans. So because I don't know how many people have gone through this, but the what you're injected with is radioactive. You have to wait a certain number of hours before being near your small child. You should. So I would say like at my mom's house on those nights and then see her in the morning. And another complication, so I guess this is unique to having a newborn. When she got a vaccine, a live vaccine, they also recommended that I stay away from her because you never really know what's going on with your immune system. Are you still immune to these different things? So that made some complications too. And like, I'm so happy I have my family, thank God for them. But like for people who might not have as many people or options of like staying in another place, you know, I'm sure it could be really tough. Even someone who just like lives far from their family, you know, you got to have to ask a friend or someone if you need to separate. It's so
Yeah,
complicated. So there's
yeah,
so
you
much
gotta,
more I'm probably forgetting at this moment. But
yeah. Oh, that gets, yeah, it gets really complicated. So, yeah,
yeah,
there's so much, so much is just comes into play when you're a
yeah,
parent and you're dealing with cancer. I mean, it's hard enough just to go through cancer, and the treatment and just trying to figure things out and make arrangements for yourself to stay if you have to travel and get treatment elsewhere from where you are. And yeah, it just really complicates things, let alone when you have a little one. And then, okay, I have to think of them too. And it's like really multitasking.
yes, yes.
Yeah, to the max. That's what it felt like for me. It was kind of,
Probably like I'm thinking even like having school age children and look at me sick now and my daughter's the kid sitting next to her, she told me had COVID, the parents had COVID, then he came and COVID. Now we have COVID. So I mean, so many illnesses that have come and gone just from hearing about it in the school. So let me know, like, you know, when you tell your story now, what did you do, if anything, to avoid that?
oh, uh, well, my situation ended up being a little bit different. Like my son was 2.5 when I was diagnosed and went through my first cancer. So it was he was young, knew that things were happening. Um, didn't understand though. He was too young to, know what was going on. I was pretty consumed with like what I was having to deal with. I was teaching at the time, and I loved teaching like you. I just loved it, and so it was like that I had to quit teaching because it was like, okay, I can't. I didn't even know if I was going to survive the surgery. It was like I had like a 50-50 chance
Oh my goodness.
to make it through the surgery. It was really major. And so it was like once I came out of surgery, I had to rely on my family, of course. And I'm so thankful that I had family to rely on and during that time because I actually, I mean, how do you care for your children when you can't be there, you're in the hospital, you know?
Yeah.
And it was hard because I missed him. Like I had to spend a lot of time in the hospital, and at one point I couldn't care for myself at all.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't bathe myself or uh, talk. I couldn't talk, and that was a really crucial time for my son. Like at 2.5 years old, there he was having conversations with me. So he's forming sentences and words and learning how to say more complex things. Yeah, and then suddenly, mom can't talk.
How confusing.
And yeah, it was, and he didn't really. He just seemed blissful through it all. Honestly, he seemed really blissful, and I'm very
Yeah.
thankful and grateful for that. Yeah, and but I think hardest part for me was not seeing him in the hospital when I was in the hospital because they
Yep.
only like I was in ICU for a month and they wouldn't allow the kids in the ICU, and so at least not at 2.5 years old, and so that was hard, because he was my strength. Like I looked at him and it was like, you're the reason I fight for everything. Like even just in general before my cancer, that's how I
Yeah.
felt, you know, and even more so during well ever since my diagnosis. Like he's just my strength, and yeah, that was really hard not seeing him and trusting others, like you said, having to trust others to make sure that he's taken care of, like you would take care of them. I mean, that's what was going through my mind. I was like, I hope they're going to feed him the things I would feed him, or are they going to make sure that this and make sure that, you just all
Yeah.
these things run through your mind, and you feel so helpless. I felt so helpless, like just well, I'm here in the hospital. There's nothing I can really do about that. And
Yep.
so there was times I had to focus on myself, and that's okay. Like that's definitely okay. And I just had to kind of trust, put my faith in that I was going to be okay. I did make, of course, I made it through surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and that was awesome. Like you said, I couldn't because I couldn't care for myself, I couldn't care for him either, even once I got out of the hospital. And that was hard because, he's was so used to me being so hands on and
Uh-huh.
picking him up all and doing things with him constantly and because that's just he was just my everything and that's just what I did, and we
Yeah.
always had a lot of fun together and all of a sudden that kind of stops and that was hard. He didn't quite understand that because I remember just having to tell him, well, I can't pick you up. Mommy can't pick you up. And him just kind of looking at me like, okay, just kind of a little confused. And I would explain things like, well, mommy's got an Ellie, and this is why I can't pick you up. I did a lot of explaining, and tried to keep it just age appropriate. And being that I'm
Yeah.
a teacher, you kind of know, like, okay, well, if they're this intelligent and they're this age, it's like, okay, I think they can handle certain ideas and
Yeah.
things. And so that was good. I found it really helpful. Like I brought him along to all my doctor's appointments,
Okay.
all my follow-up appointments. He saw like everything that was going on with me. I know he heard us grown-ups talk because I don't think we always were very self-aware of like where he was at when we would say
Right.
things because we're going through our own emotional stuff at that point,
Uh-huh.
but I explained things and he was very involved and I think that was really helpful for him, especially because he's very intelligent and uh, just was he I would just explain things like we'd be in the doctor's office and uh, you'd see the diagrams on the wall. And I'd be like, oh, well, look at this, and yeah, see, this is where mommy's tumor was, and this is where it was, and that's what that is. And he's looking at the whole diagram, and then all of a sudden he's enveloped in like this world of the medical field, and he's fascinated though because it's kind of like school, it's like learning. I kind of made, and maybe it was the teacher in me. Um, I
Yeah.
made it. If I tried to make it as fun as possible for him because I thought this isn't fun for me, so surely this can't be fun for him to have to
Right.
tag along. And I really didn't have a choice. Um, becoming disabled after my surgeries, I was like, well, okay, I can't teach, and he's just got to come with me wherever I go, and
Yeah.
that was cool. And pardon me. uh,
Yeah. So,
I often wondered like how, like during that time, like wondered how him seeing me the way I was,
uh-huh.
going from just like totally normal to half my face not working for quite some time and not being able to talk. And I wondered like how is he going to be embarrassed? You know, is he going to be like, nah, when he gets a little bit older, you know, is he going to be embarrassed? Yeah, I don't want to bring my friends over.
Yeah.
Mom looks different. That was a fear I had
What did
during.
it like? What was it like as he grew older?
As he grew older, it was really interesting. He never seemed to be bothered by it. I don't even like. I don't know. He just treated me totally normal, and so I just thought, well, okay, he's just used to seeing mom this way,
His
and
mom. Yeah.
you know, yeah, since almost he can remember, and you know, it's like he was so young, 2.5, and he he told me, and I didn't know this until he's in his 20s now, and he, he came over, and I was in the bathroom uh, putting my makeup on, and he goes, "Wait a minute," and we were talking to like through the
Uh-huh.
mirror, the reflection of the mirror, and he goes, "Wait a minute, stop, look at me." And he goes, "Now say something," and I said something. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I've never noticed that before." He, for the first time, and this is just like a year and a half, 2 years ago, for the first time, he noticed um, that this part of my face worked differently.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and he said he only noticed it in the mirror
Uh-huh.
reflection. He was when I looked right at him, and it wasn't the mirror reflection. He said he didn't notice it at all,
Yeah.
and it weird. He was like, I can't believe I never noticed that before. You know,
Yeah. I guess because it was like reversed, it stood out or something.
yeah. And I was like, really, you've never noticed this? Like, that's not something you like your brain, like, you know, and he's like, no. And to me, that was really cool because I was like,
It
I've
is.
always thought he noticed was
Yeah.
very aware, you know, and no, you know, he didn't notice at all. I was like, wow, everybody notices, you know, like that's like usually the first thing they notice. And oh, it's, you know, and some people will be like, oh, what's wrong with your face? Or did you have
Yeah.
a stroke? You know, no,
Yeah.
no, it's nerve damage and, or AKA Bell's palsy. So, but not medically induced Bell's palsy. Yeah,
Right.
that my
Wow.
speech was something that I was really worried because he was talking so well that and kids mimic us. You know, that's how they
Yeah.
learn. They mimic us so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
when they're young. And he started because I was slurring my words so much, and he started to like mumble.
Really.
Uh, and yeah, he was my little mini me, and he would copy things that I did, and I'm trying to correct him like the mom and teacher in me wants to correct him, and I realize I can't because I can't speak properly. I can't enunciate my words, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Like
So what happened
this, um,
then?
I actually This, I don't know how like people would react to it. I actually stopped talking.
Oh
I did.
no, that's
It was yeah. I had a really hard time mental health wise in that area because it was so frustrating to me because I knew how to say things, but it wasn't coming out. I had no control over how the words sounded coming out of my mouth,
yeah.
and so I got people would ask me what a lot. They'd be like, "What?" And I knew it was because either I wasn't speaking loud enough or I was mumbling,
Yeah.
and that was kind of hard. And I didn't, after a certain point, I didn't like repeating myself. It was just really, really frustrating. And between that and my son starting to just mimic that, I was like, okay, I think it's best if I just don't talk for a while until I can talk better, until I can do some speech therapy and on myself
Yeah.
and figure out, hopefully, be able to talk better and enunciate my words properly.
And like, how long did you do speech therapy for?
Um, I did it on myself since I went through speech therapy when I was a kid, because I couldn't say the letter R.
Okay.
I sounded like I was from New York.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and so I was very familiar with speech therapy, and then being a teacher, it was like, okay, I'll just
Yeah.
practice. Like practice makes perfect, and just started. I do it privately. I would make try to make facial expressions too in the mirror, and then try to say things over and over again, and I would have to remember like how, oh yeah, my tongue would be in this position,
Oh,
and a lot of it I had to depend on my nerves coming back, um,
right.
and thankfully the nerve graft that they did took and started to work, and things started to slowly come back, and then just speech therapy. I don't know how long I actually did the speech therapy with myself. It was a while. I don't think I stopped for a good until I was able to speak good enough that
Yeah.
people didn't have a hard time understanding me, and and I could help my son enunciate words, especially when he was learning like new words. I know you got to say it like this.
Yeah, so this is like slightly, I mean, it's related, and I don't know if I should even speak on it because I don't know a lot about it. But when you're saying that, I was thinking about, like, let's say deaf parents. I've actually known a couple of people who both parents are deaf and they're not.
Yeah,
And I mean, I imagine, and if they can speak, and it's not
yeah,
exactly clear or whatever it is, I wonder, like, if they go through something similar, what they would do. But I mean, I don't know if it involves speech therapy for the children, or if there's enough other people around that maybe it does make a difference. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know, and I didn't even I didn't even anticipate that, and so I didn't even realize that there was help out there that I probably could have asked for or sought and gotten to help with that. And I I just kind of clung to him and was like, I don't know. I could have put him in daycare or something maybe, but then that wouldn't have been good for me either because of my immune system, like you.
Right.
It's like, oh,
Really tricky.
he's just got home with me, and
Yeah.
it was. I didn't. I was fortunate enough to have someone with me 24/7, so I didn't have to be alone with him, and because that would have been scary. I would have been scared to, like, what if something
Yeah.
happens, and then I probably would have ended up hurting myself picking him up, doing the
Yep.
natural thing of a mom,
Yes.
but he's gotten older. He turned out just great.
Oh,
Speaks great. Is
awesome.
super intelligent. Yeah, he doesn't like hospitals. I could tell you that because he spent his pretty much whole childhood with mom and in the hospital.
Yeah.
At least at doctor's offices. And lots of doctor's offices. So he'll avoid that if he can. Which I don't blame him. I don't particularly like doctors unless I need to be there.
Exactly.
and um, yeah, no, he understands it all and is really compassionate about it. He's very compassionate towards other people too, like just in general. And I think because he knows what it's like to see someone struggle in
Uh-huh.
a really deep sense. I mean, yeah, that's such a personal setting at home,
Right.
you know. Like, and I had to control myself too. Like, I didn't always have the best days. Like, there were some days where I was just totally frustrated, like either from not being able to speak or just because I was in pain. Um, and you got to make sure you don't take that out on those around you, and make sure you give I had to make sure I did give him attention,
Uh-huh.
and not just space him out because that's easy to do too, when you're caught up in everything. And I didn't have to worry about the pet the PET scan. Well, no, I did have to worry about the PET scan. Yeah, because I was home at that point, and it was before my surgery. So yeah, I remember that. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
kind of keep this.
I don't know. I don't know how severe it would be if you were near the child, but I read some things that said it's better not to. So I always try to do the thing if possible. Like I said, I have my family there and separate.
Yeah, I
But
just I just couldn't have him on my lap. Like I remember being told that. It was like, okay. I'm like, for how long? And like, just a couple days. I'm like, okay.
like I heard you could go to another floor, and then it was just kind of like
Yeah.
after the whole
Uh-huh.
thing, I'm just gonna go to my mom lives close, so it was just easier at that point. I'll just go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
I was so glad I had my family
Yeah.
to help because I couldn't even imagine. Honestly, I think I would have. And this is terrifying to say, but I think as part of me is like, man, could I have lost my kid if I couldn't have taken care of my kid? Like that
Yeah.
was kind of a thing that ran through my brain later on that made me go, okay, no, I got to show that I can do this, not just for myself and for my kid, but for everyone else too, because there might
Yeah.
be people out there that, they're just outsiders looking in. I might go, oh gosh, well, she's sick and should she really be caring for a kid? And,
You see, people have asked me before on my page about like for advice or help, and I know like at the John Thorough Cancer Center in Hackensack, that's where I go. They have like social workers and people who will help you through it. And I didn't need to like use those services, but I think there are services that could be covered. I don't know again exactly how it works, but like
yeah,
maybe childcare or just some support services if you need it. So
yeah, they
I
have
think
a lot of stuff now
people should
that
like really look
yeah,
into research it, ask the doctor.
absolutely.
And
Because I went through mine, keep in mind, 23, this is 23 years ago. So, that was a while ago. They didn't have as much resources and programs and things available
yeah,
um, that that they do now,
yeah,
which is
and it's getting better, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, I think, and I'm so glad to see too. When I see them, I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm so glad that that's available for people now, because I didn't have that, or
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm looking at the chat. We have a few people writing such nice things. But I had been speaking to, I wrote Kay, but I'm thinking it's Keisha, if I remember correctly from your actual whole profile. I don't know if you go by Kay as your nickname, but she would like to join us. I think it'd be so awesome to hear a little of her story. She's saying that for most of her treatment, she didn't have the help. So let's have her join.
yeah,
Keisha, yeah. But she could tell us now if she'd rather go by Kay or. So I invited you. If you could join, that'd be really cool.
yeah.
Probably
Uh-oh, wait a minute.
flip it around.
Turn the camera on. Okay.
There you are. Okay.
Hi.
Should we
And
call
yes,
you
it's Keisha.
Kay?
Kay and Carl are my children.
Oh,
So, yeah, I'm Keisha.
nice. So Keisha. Okay. Oh, great to
Yep.
see you
Great
live.
to be seen. Definitely. Thank you for this opportunity to talk
Of
about it
course.
because when you're going through it, you feel like you're alone. And
Yep.
like I've shared in some of, some of your reels and things like that, for the most part, I was alone for the majority of, I was diagnosed in 2022 with
Oh,
stage
wow.
3A breast cancer because it had gone to one lymph node. At the time, I had moved to Minnesota to help my oldest daughter because I have a 25-year-old daughter and I have a 10-year-old daughter. My 25-year-old daughter, her and her husband had just had a new baby. I was supposed to help take care of my second grandchild, well, both grandchildren, because daycare is ridiculous. Well, I said, hey, got diagnosed. I can't. So that kind of caused the issue in a sense because it was like, okay, now what are we supposed to do? You act like you're the only one affected by this. And I'm like, I'm the only one with the diagnosis and I'm the only one that could die. So yeah, I kind of am the only one that's affected. I can't say that I'll watch the kids because I don't know how my body's going to react. I heard so many stories. Most of the stories were horror stories. And I had to get to a point where I said, okay, I'm going to stop looking for information because all I'm hearing is people are on the floor in the bathroom and this is happening and that's happening. And I'm glad I did stop because never once, not one day did I ever get nauseous. I had medication that I was able to donate because I never had to use it. But when we talk about, I'm listening to you all, and it's a blessing that you all had somebody or had family and things like that and support. I had moved, like I said, to Minnesota because I'm from Maryland. I'm back home in Maryland now to help. So all I had were my daughter, my son-in-law, and then they had two small children. One was a newborn. And then at that time, my daughter was 9. And so when I got diagnosed, it was right before school would start and everything. And I was talking to the counselor, and one of the things that she suggested, she said, your immune system is going to be next to nothing. Do virtual for your daughter. Don't have her come to these schools. She said, for your protection, I can get you set up and everything. We'll have the computer, everything set up, so you don't have to worry about that. And already I was virtual. I could live anywhere myself. And I just remember when I went to have the first talk, because you all were talking about the resources the hospitals had. They had social workers that they said if you needed a coloring book for your child, that while they're coloring, and you can explain to them the different things about what you're going through. If you needed someone to talk to your child about it, we have the resources here because this is a hard thing, and the children will have questions, and some questions, even as mom, you might not know how to answer. Yep. For their understanding purposes, you know what I'm saying? And the great thing was, with everything that I was going, and I say great only right now, in this aspect, my daughter's extremely nosy. So every time I talk to a doctor or whatever, she heard. So by the time I was ready to have the conversation, she was telling me what was going on with me.
That's funny. That's great.
Well, my daughter, so now, so I get it. That's, I think, how they get at that age, right?
Yeah. Yes. So I was like, you have any questions? No, ma'am. Everything was pretty much answered. Okay, great. So now we start treatment. And it's just her and I had moved downstairs because we had a 2-bedroom townhouse. I moved downstairs because I said, if there's ever a time where they have to take me out of here, they ain't not going to drop me down those steps. So I moved downstairs. But from the time that I was diagnosed and I started treatment, when I was still upstairs, she was out of her room. She was in my bed. When I went downstairs, I was on the couch. She was on the left seat.
Yeah.
When I needed to be wheeled to the bathroom, because it was bad, I would have to be wheeled to the bathroom. I had a chair in the house. The bathroom wasn't that far, but I don't know if you all, when people told me about the fatigue, I never knew it would be, I'm standing up and I felt like I ran a marathon and I haven't moved.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. Because they were like, fatigue. I'm like, I've been tired before my mom. No, not like this. I was like, I haven't moved and I need to sit down. So it was hard trying to do that without any help. And like you said, the doctor did say about the carry out, eat at home. Lifting my arm was a chore. So I was ordering food. Of course, everything tastes like sandpaper and so I'm ordering food. I'm trying to teach my daughter things that I felt like a bad mom because I was like, by her age, I was cooking this and I was doing this and I was doing that. I didn't teach her those things because she's my spoily baby. So now, how am I going to get these things done? So I'm trying to fast track. Okay, this is how you wash clothes. This is how you load the dishwasher. This is how you do this, that, and the other. But I remember feeling, like I said, like a horrible mom because this child now has been thrown into caregiver because there was nobody else. I had to teach my child, if we're riding down the road and I pass out, knock the car into neutral, then do this, then do that. And we actually went out and we practiced it so that she knew what to do. So I was like, if anything happened to me, it ain't going to happen. She's going to be fine. You know what I mean? We're not going to crash into something, you know. And that just, for me, that was really devastating. I'm having to teach my child what to do. And then, you know, I just felt really horrible. And I would ask her all the time, you know, are you okay? You know, I was like, she's going to resent me, you know, and she's like, Ma, I'll do whatever I can do for you, long as you're okay. That's all I care about. I'm like, but you're 9, you know, they're having things at the school, you know, for the virtual kids so they can meet, and you're here helping me. And when I say caregiver, I mean caregiver. Like I said, from wheeling me back and forth to the bathroom, getting me up the steps, washing me up, to the chemo tore my skin up horribly in my nape. I'm in my nape, bleeding under my everywhere, bleeding. It tore my skin up. My hands look like raw hamburger. So she's learning how to put on the gloves and, you know, use the blow dryer to dry me all the way and put the stuff on. And none of the stuff that the doctors gave me worked. It wasn't until somebody told me, use Destin, you know how, and that was the only thing. Within 24 hours, I would be healed each time. But I remember too, with the, like you were mentioning about the PET scan, you know, even though she was older, it was stay away from her, you know. So we're in the same house, and I'm like, all she has is me. So how am I supposed to, this kid who is joined to my hip, how do I get her to understand, right now you have to stay away from me, but it's not, and her not take it personally, like, okay, what have I done, what's wrong, or whatever. So it's, oh my gosh. And then every time after chemo, I was like, all right, you know, for the first 48 hours, you have to go upstairs to go to the bathroom. I have to go downstairs to go to the bathroom because they're like, we don't want. Do you remember that? Yeah. So it's like,
I use my.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a lot. We finally came home. My sister, for my last 2 treatments, was like, okay. She called me crying. She said, you need to come home to Maryland. You need help. And I'm so thankful because within several weeks, I was in the hospital because my PICC line got infected.
Oh.
I mean, my port got infected. So I was in the hospital. My daughter's there, and I'm just looking at her. But I'm like, okay, at least now she doesn't have to stay here, because when I passed out one time in Minnesota, she had to go with me to the hospital. There wasn't anybody to stay home with her.
Yeah.
And it was just because I was dehydrated. And I had to go every week, several times a week, to get hydration, because I was like, I couldn't eat. I had chemo tongue, so I couldn't drink the water or whatever. So every week I get my chemo on Friday, then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I was literally more at the doctors, at the infusion centers, than we were in the house. And so she would have to do school from the infusion centers a lot of times. But when we came home, like I said, now I'm in the hospital and she's away from me. So, you know, it was a lot of, you know, am I a bad mom? Lord, I just want to be here to, you know, to be here for this child who I love with everything in me. But not only that, so many kudos. So I felt like I owed her, because she took the time out, never hemmed her hard. Sometimes I needed her help in the middle of school, so she had to tell her teacher, hold on, but her teacher understood, and she was like, go do what you have to do, come back. And then I went from that hospital experience to, I think I mentioned to you too, they put the PICC line in my arm. I bled out, ended up with a blood clot. I'm back in. Oh my gosh. And you go through so many different emotions because you have this child that I'm a mom, I'm a nurturer, I'm supposed to take care, I'm supposed me. But cancer has said we're going to put that on the back burner right now. You can't do any of that. You know, I couldn't cook. I couldn't, mommy, I want to go out because I have cabin fever. I want to go and do stuff. All these things are now shut down, and all those things that you feel as a mom that you're supposed to do, and I couldn't. It bothered me, and I just was like, I owe her. I messed up her childhood, and she was like, Mom, you're alive.
Oh.
That's what makes the difference. You're here. That's what matters. And even now, sometimes it drives me crazy because I still deal with the neuropathy in my feet and my fingers and all of those different things. And if I move with her, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? 100 times, but I understand. I had to understand because I was like, why are you asking me all the time? At one point, then I was like, this was traumatic for her as well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So give her some grace, and she's going to act until she feels comfortable. Because, like you said, the 3 years, I'm still having to go and get scanned and do this and do that. So she's going through as I'm going through, and from a 10-year-old perspective, I have a little bit more understanding because I've read and I ask a million questions, and I'm the one going through it. But her mind processing all of this, and like I told you, at this point, with everything that we've gone through, and God is blessed, and I'm cancer free, all I want to do is give back. I want to be a blessing. I want to help those who did not have anybody, because I know what that's like. I knew God had me in a place where He was working on me and burning some things off and birthing some things. And when people go, oh, I'm sorry you went through that, I tell them all the time, please don't be sorry, because where I am now, I would not have been. It would not. It pushed me from that caterpillar for 48 years to finally a beautiful butterfly now at 50. That I probably would have still been just scooting on the ground had this not happened. You know.
Yeah.
So as weird as it may sound, I'm like, I want to bless. I want to give back. I want to, there's life after cancer. Is it rough around the edges? Yeah. But is it doable? Yes. Look at these beautiful women I'm looking at. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Yep.
You know?
We are. Yeah. And I have that same perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Isn't it amazing that we all feel like we want to give back? I mean, that's what I'm doing this for, and trying to reach as many people and have them share their story. I mean, you sharing your story today, Keisha,
yeah.
is just so inspiring because it was different than ours. Even though we're talking about being a mom and having cancer, it's something that other people will relate to, and so important. And just listening to it, they can listen back on here because I'm going to post it. Just hearing it could make somebody feel better and make them feel like they can go on. Like, you
Yeah.
never know how
Yeah.
you're feeling.
Yeah. And it's great that you explained it to your daughter, and because I had to explain it to my son, and I didn't, you just kind of go, okay, well, this is what it is. This is what I have to do. And you
Mm-hmm.
hope that for the best, that they understand it and that they handle it well. And he surprised me too. Mom, can I make you a cup of tea? Mom,
Mm-hmm.
can I make you some oatmeal? He knew he could use a microwave, and that was his way of, I realized that, wow, he cares so much, and he doesn't care that he has to help mom,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you know, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And that's what lets us know that we did well. We raised a pretty awesome human being because
Yeah.
it's like I said, her thing was, as long as you're okay, I'm okay. I don't care what I need to do, as long as you're okay. Mommy, I'm glad you're here.
Yep.
So that's a blessing. That I'm happy to hear that. That's a blessing.
It's beautiful, beautiful blessing that I'm glad we're all still here. Yeah.
Yes. And don't look like what we've gone through.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not.
I'm going to ask if any anyone else would like to join us, and you could stay on too, Keisha, would
Oh,
anyone
okay.
else like to share? I don't know if there's anyone here. If not, we'll wrap up. I mean, I'm saying it also. If anybody else wants to come on, I know I had spoken to a few people who said maybe they would want to come on camera. If there's anybody else who'd like to do that now, you can write it in the chat, or just I think, I don't know, from the other end. If I have to press, oh, maybe I have to press invite. I don't know, but either way, this was so wonderful. Such a beautiful story that you told. I mean, Keisha and Aliesha, you know, all these stories are just, like I said, very inspiring, and it shows like you just get through whatever way you can. But it seems like everyone's finding a way. So that's what's inspirational in the stories that have been told so far. Because I mean, what's the other option? I mean, this is another topic, I guess, but it's kind of like people will say, like, you're so strong, you're so brave, but you gotta just keep going. And especially when you have a child, you're gonna have that natural instinct of doing it for them. And I think that's what kept us going in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it definitely was for me. Like, I was like, who's gonna do it if I'm not here? And I'm like, no, I'm not having that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's horrible, but like in the very beginning, when I didn't know exactly what I had, what the severity or what the treatment was, I started thinking these thoughts. I guess everyone kind of goes through it. Like, if this is the end, like, this is horrible, but like, I think I like lived a fulfilling life thus far. Like, I had a wonderful career. Like, I got married, but then I would be like, but I will not be able to accept that I just had this baby. I mean, you know, I think of my whole family and the love we share. Everything is amazing, but I'm only 32 and I'm not leaving her. Like, that was like,
yeah.
I knew there was no way it could happen to me. I'm like, I'm not accepting this.
Yeah.
I needed to be there for her. I needed to see her grow up. I'm like, she won't know me. That was my fear.
Yeah.
Like, she'll never know. She'll never know.
Yeah.
And so
I
for me, it
remember.
was different. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
For me, it was different because here I am, 48, and I haven't lived. I've existed all of these years. So that was even more of a push. I'm like, I want to show my daughter so many things. I want to share so many things with my daughter. So I kept telling myself, you cannot come out of this the same way you went in. We went in existing. We have to come out living out loud, and it's weird. In this last year and a half, we've probably done more and gone more places than I did in all my life. So it really lights a fire.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It did for me too. I was just like, I don't know how long I have. I think because I'm living with a cancer that has no cure, and so they're like, it could come back. It's a slow grower, but it could come back anytime. We don't know, and it's like, well, with that info, I'm gonna live while I can. And it was like, come on, kiddo, let's go do something. Let's go do that. And it was, yeah, just have fun and enjoy it. And in a way, I think it made me a better mom.
Yeah.
Because of that, it was like, no, when they do silly things, and I know parenting is hard. It really is. And I don't care how good your kid is, you're going to have moments where you're just like, I'm having a day, After, like, once I got well enough, it was like, I have nothing to complain about. Like, if he throws a fit or if he's having a bad day, I'm more like, you having it rough, little man?
Yeah.
I know. It was like I didn't take all these things to heart that maybe I would have before cancer, as a teacher and I was a fairly strict mom, I think. And, I had my kid reined in all the time and still did throughout his whole childhood. But, you learn to let loose. You let go of that leash a little bit, give him some leeway.
Yep.
And that benefited. That was a good benefit, in the end. So yeah, because we have a great relationship because of it. It really brought us together, in that way. Yeah.
Oh. What Wonderful. Well, this was amazing, and I'd love to do some more and talk some more. Hopefully, I'm feeling better soon. I can just hear
Yeah.
it while I conjecture. But I thank you again. Yeah, I can't wait to do the next one, and I will be posting this so you can share it and watch it back. Any last minute things you want to say, or?
No,
Awesome.
thanks
Just
everyone.
thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
My
I love
pleasure. Thank you so much. This is such an awesome platform. It is a blessing. Ever since I came across your page, it has been nothing but
I'm
a
so glad.
blessing. And meeting people and talking to people. Thank you.
Of course, it means so much to me, and I enjoy it. So I will continue.
Awesome.
All right, great. So we'll be planning the next one,
Yeah,
Aliesha.
I can't wait. I'm excited. Yeah.
And everybody, well, wherever you are, good day, good night.
Bye,
All
everyone.
right. Take care.
Bye.